Rich black CEO secretly watches a waitress help a struggling mother and makes a life-changing offer. The elegant, dimly lit restaurant buzzed with quiet conversations and the gentle clinking of silverware. A soft jazz tune played in the background, creating an atmosphere of refined comfort. At a secluded corner table, a man sat alone, watching the world unfold before him. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his wrist adorned with a watch worth more than most people's yearly salary. His name was Donovan Carter, a self-made billionaire, the CEO of a major investment firm, and a man who had learned long ago that money could buy almost everything, except genuine kindness. Across the restaurant, a young waitress moved gracefully between tables, balancing trays with ease despite the obvious fatigue in her eyes. Her name tag read Mia. She smiled at every customer, never letting exhaustion dull the warmth in her gaze. Her uniform was slightly worn at the edges, her sneakers scuffed from countless hours on her feet, yet there was something radiant about her presence. Donovan watched as she made her way to a table near the window, where a woman sat hunched over with two small children. The mother's shoulders were stiff with stress, her clothes clean but clearly second-hand, her face drawn with worry. Mia crouched beside the table, lowering herself to eye level with the youngest child, a little girl clutching a tattered teddy bear. "Hey there, sweetheart," Mia said softly. "Would you like some hot chocolate? It's on the house." The girl's eyes lit up, but she looked up at her mother for permission. The woman hesitated, her lips pressing into a thin line before nodding reluctantly. Mia beamed, scribbling something on her notepad. "And for you, ma'am?" she asked gently. The woman swallowed hard, glancing at the menu. "Just water, please." Mia hesitated before nodding. "I'll be right back." Donovan observed the exchange with quiet interest, sipping his whiskey. He had seen this type of struggle before, single parents barely holding on, trying to provide for their children while the world turned a blind eye. But it wasn't just the mother's struggle that intrigued him. It was Mia's kindness. She didn't pity them. She didn't judge. She simply helped. A few minutes later, Mia returned with 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate, setting them down carefully in front of the children. But instead of only bringing water for the mother, she placed a bowl of soup and a plate of bread in front of her as well. "This is from another customer," she lied smoothly. "They wanted you to have it." The mother's eyes widened, her lips parting as if to protest, but Mia had already turned away. Donovan leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing at his lips. She was good, smart, thoughtful, the kind of person the world often overlooked. The night went on, and Donovan stayed longer than he intended, quietly watching Mia as she moved around the restaurant, her energy never faltering. When his meal was done, he signaled for the check. Mia appeared a moment later, her smile still bright despite the long shift. "Did you enjoy everything, sir?" Donovan studied her for a moment before nodding. "What's your name?" She blinked in surprise. "Mia, sir." "Mia," he repeated slowly, testing the name on his tongue. "Do you always go out of your way for customers like that?" Mia hesitated, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I don't think it's out of my way to be kind," she said carefully. "People go through things we don't always see. A little kindness can change someone's entire day." Donovan chuckled, pulling out a sleek black card. "Tell your manager my bill is covered. And keep the change." Mia's eyes widened as she took the card and the bill, her hands trembling slightly. "Sir, this is—" "A tip," Donovan interrupted. "For you." Mia swallowed hard, glancing down at the receipt where he had scrawled something at the bottom. She read it twice before looking back at him, her heart pounding. "Meet me tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. My office." She glanced up, but Donovan was already sliding out of his chair, adjusting his cufflinks as he strode toward the exit. She stared after him, her mind spinning. What did he want? Why her? The next morning, Mia stood outside a gleaming skyscraper in downtown Manhattan, staring up at its sheer magnitude. She had barely slept, her mind replaying the events of the night before. Clutching the business card Donovan had left her, she forced herself to step forward, through the grand entrance, and into the marble-floored lobby. The receptionist greeted her with polite professionalism. Mr. Carter is expecting you." A security guard escorted her to the top floor, where Donovan's office loomed like something out of a movie, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, sleek black furniture, a bar cart stocked with expensive liquor. Donovan sat behind an enormous desk, his fingers steepled as he studied her. "You showed up," he said, sounding mildly impressed. Mia nodded, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "You asked me to." Donovan motioned for her to sit. "Do you know who I am?" She swallowed hard. "I looked you up. And you're a billionaire," she said bluntly. "You own half the city. People call you ruthless." Donovan chuckled. "They do." He leaned forward, his sharp eyes locking onto hers. "Tell me, Mia, why do you work so hard for so little?" Mia frowned. "Because I have to." No, he shook his head. "You could be like everyone else, just doing the bare minimum. But you don't. You care. That's rare." Mia shifted in her chair. "I don't know what you want from me, Mr. Carter." Donovan studied her for a moment before pulling a folder from his desk. "I want to offer you a job." Mia blinked. "What?" "You heard me." He slid the folder toward her. "I run a company that needs people with integrity. People who actually give a damn. That little stunt you pulled last night? That's the kind of thing that makes a difference in business. And I need people like that." Mia hesitated before flipping open the folder. Her breath caught. It wasn't just any job offer. It was a 6-figure salary, benefits, and a position in his company's philanthropy division. Her hands trembled as she looked back up at him. "Why me?" Donovan's expression softened just slightly. "Because once upon a time, someone took a chance on me. And it changed everything." Mia stared at the papers, her heart pounding. This was life-changing. This was something she had never even dared to dream about. But was it real? She looked back at Donovan, searching his face for deception, for a catch. But all she saw was certainty. A slow smile spread across his lips. "Take your time, Mia. But if you're ready to change your life," he tapped the contract. "All you have to do is sign." Mia took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. And she picked up the pen. Mia hesitated, gripping the pen tightly. Her heart pounded against her ribs as she stared at the contract in front of her. The numbers were unreal, more than she had ever dreamed of making in her lifetime. The benefits, the security, the stability, it was everything she had ever wanted, but never dared to believe was possible. And yet, doubt gnawed at the edges of her mind. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. Life had taught her that nothing came for free. There was always a catch, always a price to pay. She glanced up at Donovan Carter, the billionaire who had just turned her world upside down in less than 24 hours. His sharp, calculating gaze remained locked onto her, waiting, testing. There was no trace of impatience, only quiet confidence, as if he already knew what her answer would be. She swallowed hard. "Why me?" she whispered, needing to hear it again. "Out of all the people in the world, why are you offering this to me?" Donovan leaned back in his chair, intertwining his fingers as he studied her. "I told you," he said. "I recognize something in you, something most people overlook. You care when you don't have to. That's rare. That's valuable." He tilted his head slightly, his voice smooth but firm. "And I need people who are valuable." Mia exhaled, glancing down at the paper again. A job in his company's philanthropy division. A real chance to make a difference. But still, it felt unreal. "What's the catch?" she asked, finally voicing the question that had been clawing at her since he first made the offer. A slow smirk touched Donovan's lips. "The catch." He let the words hang in the air for a moment. "The catch is that this won't be easy. You'll be stepping into a world you know nothing about. You'll be dealing with people who will look down on you, who will question why you're here. You'll have to prove yourself every single day." His eyes darkened slightly, a rare flicker of something unreadable passing through them. "And you'll be working for me." Mia swallowed. There it was, the unspoken weight of his presence, of who he was. Donovan Carter wasn't just any billionaire. He was known for his ruthlessness in business, for his ability to see weakness and exploit it. People respected him, feared him. And now he was offering to change her life. She exhaled slowly and, before she could second-guess herself, put the pen to paper and signed. The moment the ink dried, Donovan reached for the contract, sliding it back toward him. "Good," he said, standing up. "You start tomorrow." The next morning, Mia stood outside the towering glass skyscraper once again, but this time, she wasn't just an outsider looking in. She adjusted her borrowed blazer, the only professional-looking thing she had managed to scrape together, and took a deep breath before stepping inside. The receptionist greeted her with a polite nod before directing her to an elevator that shot her up to the executive floors. When the doors slid open, she was met by a sleek, modern office space bustling with sharply dressed employees who all looked like they belonged in a high-end fashion magazine. The air smelled like expensive cologne and ambition. Mia clutched the strap of her bag tighter, trying not to let the sheer opulence of it all intimidate her. "Ms. Brooks." A tall woman with a sharp bob and an even sharper gaze approached her, clipboard in hand. "Follow me." Mia nodded and hurried after her, weaving through hallways lined with offices that had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Finally, they stopped in front of a glass-walled conference room. Inside, Donovan sat at the head of the table, effortlessly commanding the attention of everyone present. He glanced up when she entered and gestured for her to take a seat. "Mia," he said smoothly, "welcome to your new life." She swallowed hard and nodded, not trusting her voice. Donovan's gaze flickered to the others in the room. "Let's begin." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Mia was thrown into the deep end, navigating a world that was completely foreign to her. She sat in meetings with people who spoke in a language of numbers and negotiations she barely understood. She spent hours poring over documents, trying to absorb everything as quickly as possible. And Donovan? He was relentless. He expected excellence, demanded it. There were no second chances, no room for hesitation. But he never treated her as if she didn't belong. He challenged her, pushed her, but never patronized her. And slowly, she started to find her footing. Then came the first test. One evening, long after most employees had gone home, Donovan called her into his office. The city lights cast a glow through the windows, painting the room in shadows. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed, watching her. "I have a task for you," he said. "One that will determine whether or not you actually deserve to be here." Mia straightened. "I'm listening." Donovan's lips twitched slightly, as if amused by her determination. "There's a project we've been working on, a community housing initiative. It's a multi-million-dollar deal, but the people involved," he exhaled sharply. "They don't trust me." Mia frowned. "Why not?" "Because people like me don't have the best track record of actually helping the communities we claim to help," he said bluntly. "They think it's all just PR." He met her gaze. "But you might be able to change their minds." Mia's stomach tightened. "What exactly do you need me to do?" "Convince them that we're not the enemy." Donovan handed her a file. "You have a meeting with them tomorrow." Her breath hitched. "Alone?" Donovan smirked. "Unless you need me to hold your hand." Mia squared her shoulders. "I'll handle it." He nodded approvingly. "We'll see." The next day, Mia found herself sitting in a cramped, modest office on the other side of the city, facing a group of community leaders who eyed her with suspicion. An older woman leaned forward, her expression guarded. "So, you work for Carter now?" Mia hesitated before nodding. "Yes." The woman scoffed. "You know what people like him do to neighborhoods like ours, right? They buy up land, push people out, and call it progress." Mia took a deep breath. "I know that's what you think is happening," she said carefully. "But I also know that I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't believe we could actually make a difference." A man across the table folded his arms. "And why should we trust you?" Mia met his gaze steadily. "Because I was one of you," she said simply. "I know what it's like to struggle, to wonder if you'll have a roof over your head next month. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe this project could actually help." The room fell silent. Then, finally, the older woman nodded slowly. "All right," she said. "We'll listen." Mia exhaled. Step 1 complete. When she returned to the office that evening, Donovan was waiting. He didn't say anything at first, just watched her as she stood in the doorway, exhausted but victorious. Then he smirked. Not bad. Mia raised an eyebrow. That's it. He chuckled, shaking his head. You're just getting started. And for the first time since stepping into his world, Mia believed him. Because this wasn't just a job anymore. This was a fight, a challenge. And she was ready for it. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly anticipated, was that stepping into Donovan Carter's world meant stepping into something far bigger than she ever imagined. Something dangerous. Something that would change everything. Mia left Donovan's office that night with an uneasy feeling she couldn't quite shake. The way he had looked at her, calculating, almost as if he was testing her, stayed with her as she walked out of the towering glass building into the cold night air. She had done well today, but something told her that this was only the beginning. Donovan Carter wasn't the type of man to invest in someone without expecting something in return, and while she was determined to prove herself, she couldn't help but wonder if she had just stepped into something far bigger than she could handle. The next morning, she was back at her desk before sunrise, poring over reports and preparing for the follow-up meeting with the community leaders. It was strange. Just a week ago, she was serving coffee and struggling to pay rent, and now she was discussing multi-million-dollar projects with some of the most powerful people in the city. The transition had been so fast, so surreal, that she barely had time to process it. As she sifted through the paperwork, she felt a presence behind her. She turned to see Donovan standing there, watching her with that unreadable expression of his. You did well yesterday, he said, stepping closer. Better than I expected. Mia narrowed her eyes. You didn't think I could do it? A smirk touched his lips. I knew you had potential. I just wasn't sure if you had the nerve. He studied her for a moment before sliding a folder onto her desk. But I'm not the only one watching. Mia frowned, picking up the folder. Inside were photos, blurry surveillance shots of her speaking with the community leaders, of her leaving the meeting, of her walking home. Her breath hitched. What is this? Donovan's expression darkened. A warning. Mia looked up at him, confused and slightly alarmed. A warning from who? He sighed, running a hand over his jaw. This project isn't as simple as you think, Mia. There are people, powerful people, who don't want it to happen. People who have a lot to lose if we actually succeed. He gestured to the folder. These photos? This is their way of letting us know they're paying attention. Mia's stomach twisted. She wasn't naive. She knew corruption ran deep in the city, but she hadn't expected to be caught in the middle of something so dangerous so soon. So what do we do? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Donovan leaned in slightly, his eyes sharp. We keep moving forward. But from now on, you watch your back. Over the next week, things escalated. Mia began noticing small, unsettling things. Her apartment door was unlocked when she was sure she had locked it. Her phone would sometimes make strange clicking noises during calls. And once, a black car followed her halfway home before suddenly disappearing into the night. She tried to brush it off, to convince herself she was just being paranoid. But deep down, she knew better. Donovan remained calm, almost too calm. He had clearly dealt with things like this before, but he never shared much. He simply expected her to adapt, to move forward as if nothing had changed. One evening, after another long meeting, she finally confronted him in his office. Are you going to tell me who's behind this? She demanded, crossing her arms. Because if I'm being watched, if I'm in danger, I deserve to know why. Donovan exhaled slowly, tapping his fingers against the desk. You're right, he admitted, his gaze meeting hers. You do deserve to know. He paused before continuing. There's a group of investors who control most of the low-income housing in this city. Slumlords, essentially. They keep rents high, let buildings fall apart, and force people to stay because they have nowhere else to go. Our project? It threatens their entire business model. Mia swallowed. So they're trying to intimidate us? Donovan's jaw tightened. They're trying to make us stop. And if intimidation doesn't work, he trailed off, but the unspoken threat was clear. Mia felt a chill run through her. And what happens if we don't stop? Donovan leaned back in his chair, studying her. Then we win. His words were simple, but there was something in his tone, something cold, unyielding. that sent a shiver down her spine. He wasn't afraid. If anything, he seemed almost excited by the challenge. Mia took a slow breath, steadying herself. Then we don't stop. Donovan's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Good. The threats continued. One night, Mia's apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but the message was clear. Whoever was behind this wanted her to know they could reach her anytime they wanted. Donovan responded immediately, moving her into a secure high-rise owned by his company and assigning a security team to watch over her. She hated the feeling of being watched, but she hated the idea of backing down even more. Then, one evening, everything changed. Mia was in her temporary apartment, reviewing notes for an upcoming press conference, when her phone rang. It was Donovan. "Turn on the news," he said, his voice unreadable. Mia grabbed the remote, flipping to the local station. The screen filled with footage of a burned-out car, surrounded by flashing police lights. The reporter's voice was grim. Authorities are investigating what appears to be a targeted arson attack. The vehicle, registered to community leader Angela Hayes, was set ablaze late last night. Hayes, a vocal supporter of the new housing project, was unharmed but has since gone into hiding, citing safety concerns. Mia's blood ran cold. Angela was one of the women she had met with, the same woman who had been skeptical of Donovan but had ultimately agreed to hear them out. "This isn't just intimidation anymore," she said quietly. "They're escalating." Donovan's silence on the other end of the line spoke volumes. Finally, he said, "Meet me at the office." Now, when Mia arrived, Donovan was already waiting in the conference room, pacing. The moment she stepped inside, he turned to her, his expression unreadable. "They made their move. Now it's our turn." Mia frowned. "What do you mean?" He slid a file across the table. "We go public. We expose them." She hesitated before opening it. Inside were documents, bank records, legal filings, internal memos. Proof of corruption. Proof that the slumlords had been profiting off of vulnerable communities for years. Mia's eyes widened. "Where did you get this?" Donovan smirked. "I have my ways." Mia shook her head in disbelief. "So what's the plan?" "We leak this to the press," Donovan said. "We make sure they can't hide. Once the public knows the truth, they'll have no choice but to back down." Mia felt a rush of adrenaline. "And if they retaliate?" Donovan's smirk faded, replaced by something darker. "Let them try." The next 48 hours were chaos. The documents were released anonymously, sending shockwaves through the city. News outlets picked up the story immediately, and within hours, protests erupted outside the offices of the slumlords. Mia barely had time to breathe as everything unfolded. She watched as people who had been ignored for years finally had a voice, as the city turned against those who had been exploiting them for so long. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, terrifying. Then, one night, she received a message. A simple, chilling text from an unknown number. "You should have walked away. Now it's too late." Mia's heart pounded as she stared at the screen. She looked up at the city skyline outside her window, suddenly aware of how exposed she was. She grabbed her phone and dialed Donovan. "We have a problem," she said the moment he answered. There was a pause before he replied, his voice calm but firm. "Then we handle it." Mia took a deep breath, gripping the phone tightly. She wasn't sure how this would end. But she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't running.